why Freedom Day? We have identified in the trade union movement that long before COVID-19 and the pandemic hit our shores here in Trinidad and Tobago, our economy was in deep crisis. The government's position with respect to workers and labor was one that saw a vicious attack on working people in this country. And it was one that saw, perhaps as we have never seen before, an attack against the trade union movement, an attempt to decimate the trade union movement for one particular reason. And that reason is for the government to have its way in implementing austerity measures, in implementing anti-worker measures, in implementing the process of privatization, all of which would bring extreme hardship to not just the working people in this country, but all of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and future generations to come. And therefore, at that time, we had recognized the frontal attack and that onslaught, and we had committed to continue the fight in defense of our country, certainly in defense of our members and in defense of those who today do not have a voice. And so when the COVID-19 and the pandemic hit our shores, what in fact that did, it exposed the weak underbelly of the government policy. It exposed the lack of caring of the government. It also exposed the dictatorial nature of the government, the arrogance of the government, and of course, their inability to govern in the interests of the country. And therefore, all of their non-policies, because it seems that this government is operating by VAPs, there's no clear policy direction, and that any proper advice given to them, which advice would benefit the people of the country, those advice are thrown out of the door in preference for their support for the 1%. It seems that this is solely a 1% government, where their only care is about defending and advancing the interests of their financiers, the 1% in this country. The 99% of us who have to undergo all of these burdens and problems on a day-to-day basis, and in addition to that, deal with the fallout of COVID-19 and deal with the lack of care of the government's approach to this COVID-19. When you put all of that on top of a failing and a failed economy, we are in deep crisis. And anyone today who do not recognize or who fail to accept that our country is in deep crisis, such a person needs to rethink his or her position, a position that is only, that can only, the vision of that person can only be skewed on the basis of some sort of political loyalty for the government, some other consideration, which consideration has nothing to do with the interests of Trinidad and Tobago. In other words, people, every right-thinking citizen, every decent citizen, every law-abiding citizen for this country ought to recognize the direction that we are heading in today is in the wrong direction. And therefore, we are calling on the government to halt immediately and have a complete 180 turnaround to head in a positive direction that will benefit the masses in this Twin Island state, Trinidad and Tobago. So on Labor Day this year, you would have heard me in my Labor Day address addressing a wide-ranging, quite a significant number of issues, critical issues, issues from which affect workers who are at work currently, issues which affect the government's lack of policy direction, issues which affect the economy, agriculture, issues which affect the energy sector, which sector is in peril as we speak, issues which respect the lack of concern for industrial relations in this country, and of course, issues that affect working people and the issue of massive retrenchment, and bringing to the attention of the country that since this government came into office in 2015 to present, we have had hundreds of thousands of people losing their jobs. Let me say that again. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their jobs under this government. And it seems as if that is a comfortable direction for the government to go. And so the government setting the tone in that regard would have had an able part of employers who jump and follow suit. And therefore today, it is expected that all of those workers who are at home without a job today, that they will be joined by even more workers. But that those workers who are at home and those workers who are at work and are experiencing reduced income, reduced days work offered to them, all of them are expected to do what? Bear the brunt of the burden, the brunt of the sacrifice, while the 1% continue to amass all of the profits and extract all of the opportunity that is brought about by this lack of care and the lack of governance, proper governance on the part of those who say they care, and on the part of those who said that you made the right choice. Today, the problems that we are experiencing is a result of the wrong choices that was made. But we in the trade union movement stand firm and resolute, and therefore we are today saying that all of what they are doing, all of the taking advantage of the COVID-19 situation, taking advantage of the fact that we are under state of emergency with strict emergency powers regulations, and that we can clearly see that the government is accelerating its plan, its anti-worker plan, anti-people plan, its plan for privatization and so on, a plan to bring more burden on the people in a dictatorial fashion, because at this time, there's no opportunity for us to respond or for the people to respond as we traditionally would have responded. Because had it not been for an SOE or even a COVID-19 situation with ministries of health regulation, which we adhere to, were it not for those things, the trade union movement, in addition to taking these matters through the process, through the grievance processes, through the industrial relations processes, through the ministry and through the courts, in addition to that which we are doing currently, we would have been in the streets. The streets belong to the trade union movement, and therefore it is a tool of trade that we would have used traditionally to present, to register and to indicate in a very forceful and strong way our dissatisfaction with the way in which the country is being governed. And may I remind all of the naysayers that that is not the end all or be all to our struggle. While we struggle in the streets, we struggle in the courts, we struggle in the courts, we struggle at the level of all of the fora that gives us an opportunity to properly make the point and advance our argument in a cogent and the most realistic and practical way on the basis of profound research. But we cannot abandon the streets. May I also remind all the naysayers that today as we speak, even in the COVID-19 situation, the pandemic situation that is facing the world, first world countries, major metropolitans, countries in the north, United Kingdom, Europe, United States of America, all of those countries that we take our technological and our first world reading from and our examples from, they are people, they are professionals, and they are workers, all of them. When they are dissatisfied, they find place in the streets. So do not posit that in the streets is backward. If it's anything at all, it has worked in the past. They see the value of it. And of course, we have always seen the value of it. And we have claimed and we will continue to claim our presence in the streets to register our dissatisfaction. And may I also remind all of the PNM people that, remember a fellow called Keith Christopher Rowley? When he was piloting the issue of the facade or trying to fool the people of Section 34, remember that? An email, his email gate and so on. He said we must march. Let us not forget that, you know. Remember, he would have joined all those marches in the street. So today, don't condemn us because we are claiming what is effective on behalf of not just the trade union movement, but on behalf of all of the suffering people of Trinidad and Tobago. The worst thing that can happen to someone who is suffering is to not know that they are suffering. But even worse than that is to give assistance and help by your silence to those who are imposing that suffering on you. It is a type of self-abuse where you join the abuser to abuse you. Well, there has been too much abuse by the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and the trade union movement is about to put and bring halt to that abuse. And so the issue that we are talking about today encompasses, as I said, massive job losses, thousands and thousands and thousands of workers, reduced income and total loss of income for some, increased food prices, and we are hearing where the Supermarket Association, they are now saying that brace yourself for increased food prices. We warned about that. Increased rents, increased costs to household items, reduction in NIB pensions, increased electricity rates to come, increased water rates, increased fuel prices that will come if you do not stand up and have your voices heard shouting against it, as calling on them to stop it, demanding on them to stop that increase, because that will bring about a compounding impact with respect to food prices and the cost of living in this country. Privatization, and privatization under the heading of restructuring, but really to move what is public into private, but the net effect of which we'll see more workers going home, more workers losing their jobs, more workers being placed on the breadline. The privatization of the port, and NP, and TNTEC, WASA, Postal to come under the guise of restructuring, all of which will have the devastating impact of putting more workers on the breadline. And so these issues would affect our nurses, our teachers, the CPEP workers, the daily wage workers. You know, we have daily wage workers. And let me identify that for those who do not know this fancy name that the government had given daily wage workers. They are really the people who depend on a day work, work day to day, just to get a day work to put food on the table tonight or tomorrow for their families. The masons, the carpenters, the welders, the laborers, the mechanics, the electricians, the tradesmen, the gardeners, depend on a day work, all of which through this government failed policy and the lack of caring, all of which the trade union movement is saying they are impacted by the direction this government is taking the country. All of these people who they solicit their votes to put them in office, they disregard them, and they are in deep, deep trouble. And so that what we are talking about is not just employed, unemployed, the man in the street, the vendor at the sidewalk and so on, the food caterer, those who sell food for their living. All of those people are severely impacted. The domestic worker, retail store worker, the cleaners, the corporation and daily paid workers in San Fernando City Corporation and in Port of Spain City Corporation, the TNTech workers and the emergency crews, the TSTT and other telecommunication workers, the WASA workers, the port workers, the swim call and sanitation workers, the maxi taxi and taxi drivers, the postal workers, security officers in this country, the finance sector workers, and workers who are on contract. Well, those workers who are on contract, they are at the behest or at the receiving end of pressure coming from those with whom they have those contracts. And the CAL workers, the CAL workers who today are on the breadline and who today the government is refusing to talk with their representative body. The issue of speeding up the recognition and certification process to allow workers to be recognized, their trade union to be recognized so that they can get proper representation. All of those things do not find priority with this government. What finds priority is, here's what finds priority: their luxury cars, their benefits to themselves. All of those benefits, both them and all of the parliamentarians who seems not to care about anything else, but to rush to get, to purchase some luxury vehicles, to get exemption from VAT, from tax, value-added tax, exemption from the customs duties and so on, import duties, exemption to the tune of over $500,000, which $500,000, when you add that up collectively with all of them, would have been able to redress problems here in the country, redress problems with respect to putting food on the table and so on. But that is their priority. And while they dig out your eye and they rush to put that in place for them and maintain that with the Prime Minister himself leading the charge, saying that he will defend that because he would have had legal advice, because that is a condition of their work. They, by their doing, would have removed and stripped away all of your conditions of work. In fact, they strip away your job itself. And they would have demonized good paying jobs. They would have demonized negotiated benefits on behalf of workers. But they enjoy these benefits and they must continue to enjoy it. And they are with a serious rush now to ensure that everybody get their car at a seriously discounted rates. And so you, the taxi driver or the taxi driver also, who have to acquire a vehicle to put food on the table, you have to be with the burden of all of these taxes and so on that they get off. And in addition to that, other conditions that, you know what, for work that they do not do, because their work is to ensure that the people in the country, we the people, have a decent standard of living. That we the people in a COVID-19 pandemic situation, that we are protected. Yes, we understand that it is worldwide, but Trinidad and Tobago should have been much better off than we are today. Trinidad and Tobago should have been first in line to offer vaccines to all of its citizens. All of those things did not happen and is not happening as we speak. And what we have to, we take what we get because we can't get better, and they do what they want, how they want, when they want. But we want to say it must not be for as long as they want. There must come a time when all of this has to come to a screeching halt. And so you look at countries like Brazil and see how they are responding to their government's approach, or their government's lack of proper approach to dealing with their economy and to dealing with this pandemic situation. Look and you see how they are dealing with it. And you look at all of those other countries who are the citizens, that is, are treating with those issues. They are not asleep. They are not, because they support a government into office, they are not prepared to have that government dig out their eyes. And so we are saying that that is the approach that we have taken throughout the years as the trade union movement in this country, that we are not going to allow, we did not allow the colonial rule to do what they want. We did not allow successive governments to do what they want. We did not allow the great Dr. Eric Eustace Williams to do what he wanted. We did not allow his successor, George Chambers, to do what he wanted. We did not allow A.N.R. Robinson to do what he wanted. We certainly did not allow that. We did not allow Basdeo Pandey. We certainly did not allow Patrick Manning. We did not allow Kamla Persad-Bissessar. So who the hell is Keith Christopher Rowley? We will not allow him to pauperize this country and to bring pain and hurt and suffering to the people of this country. As a trade union movement, we have a responsibility and we are prepared to discharge that. So we have said that we have developed this Unite to Fight campaign. The campaign against all of these massive job losses and all of these things that I have already identified this morning and more. A campaign against injustice against the people. A campaign against corruption. Corruption did not go out when the UNC left office. Corruption is still here. It is just masked in a different way, but corruption in governance, in government, is still here. And that corruption still is a stranglehold on the people. We still have government ministers, senior government ministers, what? Collecting serious big rent. Millions of dollars in rent on their own property. They might shift the name to someone else. But we all of us know, if we are to be honest, we can go and point to those assets, those buildings in our nation's capital, exactly where those buildings are. Let's not turn our eyes away, our attention away from that it was bad for the other people, but it's good for them. No, no, no. That's hypocrisy. And therefore, we all know that there are government ministers who are benefiting from these major contracts. We all know that there are government ministers who have theirs and their family building rented out and collecting millions and millions of dollars. While those same people will tell you, hush them out. You're not supposed to have a job. You're not supposed to have these terms and conditions and so on. Those same people will tell you that. Bad thing about that is if you agree with what they are telling you, that is injustice. And we also know that there were those who lie. And today, they can find no place. They say, don't judge, but I really believe that they can find no place in both heaven and hell because their soul is still looking around. Heaven don't want them, hell don't want them. But the lies that he told on the workers in this country and the petroleum workers, and that is deceased Lion Khan. Yeah? The lie he told as he demonized the petroleum workers and workers in this country. God rest his soul. Lion Khan. And therefore, all of that is a massive campaign to set you up, the people. Set us up to accepting that little is our portion. Less is our portion. We should have none. We should suffer. we should meekly wait and murmur not. We should not say anything. We should agree with all that they say, and we should suffer us to go to them. For what? For more suffering. That is their approach. But we say no to that. And that is why we would have said that this state of emergency that they have implemented, that they are using to their advantage, that they are repressing the voice of the people, that they are ostracizing and demonizing anyone that is prepared to stand up in defense of himself or herself or himself or herself or their organization, or in defense of the truth. They will send their hounds on the talk show posts and so on. And you can hear them in the drive time and in the morning shows and so on. And they would program all of their callers and so on, their paid callers, their paid bloggers and so on, the social media support, just to attack the truth. Those same people on the I-95 station, I-95, you have I-95 both here and in the United States. Those same people were speaking out against what was happening not too long ago when another party was in power. What hypocrisy. But I want to say this morning on behalf of the people and the interests that we represent, that we don't care about what they say, what they do. We have a job and a duty to perform, and we will do it. And so we said that at the end of the day, it is us who are feeling the brunt. And therefore, as we said, this state of emergency that they are using to their advantage, the government that is, must come to an end. Come to an end. And when that time comes, we will be able to access our tools of trade that we traditionally had, which tools of trade still available to us, which is effective and which we will use effectively. And therefore, we have identified the 1st of September as Freedom Day. Freedom Day for the trade union movement. Freedom Day for the people to be in the streets. Freedom Day for us to come out and to voice our concern, our dissatisfaction with the type of governance meted out to us, the people. So we are preparing for that day. We are mobilizing for that day. And let me say from the onset that all of the actions by the trade union movement will be well within the ambit of the laws of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. We say that again, for those who would want to say otherwise, all of what we are doing will be within the ambit of the law of Trinidad and Tobago. They are the lawbreakers. They break all of the industrial relations law, all of the collective agreements and so on, all of the contractual arrangements. They are the lawbreakers. They violate the law with impunity. We will adhere to the law. And we will also observe all of the regulations that would be in place at that time with respect to the Ministry of Health regulations with respect to COVID-19 situation as we go out in the streets. But to go, we must go. To occupy the streets, we must occupy the streets. To tell the world all is not well in Trinidad and Tobago, we must be prepared to signal to the world that the trade union movement is alive and well, and representing the interests of the masses, the interests of those who are without a voice, the interests of the future of this country, of course, against the tyrannic hand of this current government, against the uncaring and the dictatorial hand of this government. And in case you didn't notice it, we are under a dictatorship. And a dictatorship does not just happen overnight. It happens incrementally. And that is what is happening here. From stage to stage. And as you give up your rights, your right to a decent standard of living, your right to justice, your right to be able to speak out, as you give up that right, somebody else would claim it, captivate it, and impose on you a type of dictatorship, the likes of which you perhaps have never experienced. And at that time, it will be difficult for you to even murmur. And so we want to declare this morning, September the 1st, Freedom Day. We also want to say that there will be an activity in the streets of Trinidad and Tobago. And as time progresses, we will identify exactly what that activity is, exactly where that activity will start and where, but rest assured that activity will take center stage in our nation's capital, Puerto de España, on September the 1st, 2021, Freedom Day. Issue of recognition and a lack of concern or urgency on the part of the Minister of Labor and the government to simplify that process, to allow workers to have a union officially recognized as the recognized majority union, and to give them representation within the law. Because while the law allows you to freedom of association, the process to gain recognition with the trade union is onerous, and therefore, because of the lack of infrastructure, lack of ensuring that that process is in place, and the people, members to the board are in place. Because those things are not properly in place, workers are being denied the right, their right to join a trade union of their choice. It's not that they don't want to, it is the process that is in place, it is onerous. And that we had made recommendations, among many other recommendations. This government itself, through their agencies, through their state boards and so on. PORGEN is one of those agencies, through their board of directors, challenge the process, challenge the recognition process, challenge the fact that go for judicial review and so on, based on workers attempting to become members of trade unions. Government itself challenge the law, existing law, and deny workers representation. So matters are held up in court and the Court of Appeal because the government itself is challenging the process of recognition and denying through that challenge workers' right to representation or to join a trade union of their choice. They talk about anti-worker and hypocrisy. So while they say one thing on the one hand, the reality is their state boards direct their high-paid attorneys to take to the court all of these issues where workers are attempting to join trade unions. That is happening. And so when we talk about the problems that we are experiencing and the actions that we are intended in taking, somebody shouldn't flex. If anything at all, it should support the action. Okay, who else? Is he ready?
Question asked, what would we do if
the question is, what would we do if the government seeks another SOE? Of course, I did say that we are going to operate within the confines of the law. But we are calling on the opposition to not give support, which support will be necessary for another SOE, because they will need now the support of the opposition to go for that, that other extension. They have run their course, they run their time, and so on. And it cannot be that the government will go outside of the law now and extend the state of emergency. We don't see that happening. In fact, that will give us more impetus, and it will be a catalyst to be in the streets if that happens. But I call on the opposition this morning, because their support will be needed to extend this SOE, to join with us in ensuring that Freedom Day becomes a success, and do not give any support to the extension of this SOE. Any other question? Are we very clear? And when we come out on Freedom Day is also for the media, for all you media workers who do your work diligently, and to ensure that that work that is done by you reaches the public, so that the public will get the benefit of all of those coverage that you make, and that you are free to ask questions to trade unions, to any management, and to the government. You are free to do that in the interest of democracy and in the interest of reporting the truth and so on. So it is for you members of the media, it is for those without a voice, it is for those who are today suffering, it is against the dictatorship of the government, it is against the abuse of the government, it is against they taking advantage of the SOE, it is against of their flaunting in the faces of the masses all of their perks and so on, while taking away the jobs of people in this country. It is against all of the taxes that are going to be imposed on you, the people. This Minister of Finance could hardly wait to implement in this coming budget new and additional forms of taxation, which will bring additional burden and wreak havoc on we, the people in this country. And we are saying, no, stop it, back off. Because if you don't stop it, if you don't back off, something else will come. And on that day, Freedom Day, we'll be free to say exactly what the other moves will be. But for now, we welcome Freedom Day. We can hardly wait for September the 1st, when we'll all be free men and women, free people, free citizens of this country, to be able to observe within the ambit of the law, to demonstrate our disgust or dissatisfaction against the way in which this place is being ruined by those who say they care, but the reality is totally different. And so, as I close here, I want to call on the Recognition and Certification Board. I want to call on the Minister of Labor to ensure that that process is given the wherewithal and that the vacancies are filled, and therefore they can convene their meetings and complete the process that would allow the aviation, communication, and allied workers, that union that represent the CAL workers, to be given full recognition status, and all of the unions that are pending, that have applications pending before the Recognition and Certification Board, for that process, those processes to be completed, and so that they can be the recognized majority union for those respective workers, so that they can give them protection within the Industrial Relations Act, and of course within the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, that workers, suffering people, can get representation. But today that is not the priority of this government. I want to remind all, that is not their priority. Their priority is to take from the people.